This is Grandma from We Code Make Code. We are going to have so much fun today. I've been spending the entire week playing with Make Code Arcade extensions and using GitHub and, should we say, going around in circles, because that's the kind of the theme of this show. Okay, let's get started. Okay, here we are in Make Code Arcade. First, I want to show you a program that I developed a while back on and wrote about on my blog, which is WeCodeMakeCode.com. And there it is, hula hoop. Well, I struggled with writing hula hoop for maybe a month on and off because there were several limitations in Make Code Arcade that made programming it very, very difficult. And it would have been enormously easy had I understood extensions. So we're going to, let's see. So if you want to read about hula hoop and look at all of its various features and so on, you can go to the blog. But right now, we're going to run it on Make Code Arcade. So let's import a project. Now there's a couple of ways we can import hula hoop. One way is to go to my GitHub repository. So I have all my programs here, and now that's hula hoop, the most recent version. And I could just click it and open it, and that would be it. But if you go to do that, then you will not be able to import it. So what we need to do is use import a URL. And since we want to do that from GitHub, we want to go here. We'll go to GitHub. Now I've signed out of GitHub because I wanted you to see it as it is when you're not a user, that is, you don't have a login. So here in the search, I'm going to search for We Code Make Code. Okay. See, it's looking in the code for that first came up, so we don't want to do that. We want to go to the home screen, which is there, and then search for We Code Make Code. There we are, We Code Make Code. Now, this is in a little dummy program that I won't bother to explain. I'll go here, and we can see all of my these are the public programs in my repositories. So what we want to look at is Hula Hoop 31. And once we have Hula Hoop 31, we could read the code here if you want to, but we just copy this URL, go back to Make Code and click it. There it should come. Come on. I have had a little problem with this today. Didn't exactly import like I wanted it to. Import. Let's try that again. Isn't that exciting? Let me see if I can get it from my repository. Honest, what I just did will work. Well, that's sort of the pits. This may be an example of Murphy's Law. So we will just move on, and we will not do that. So we will first make a new program. and we will cut our program. Well, that's not working very well either. Let's just try that once more after I've restarted MakeCode. Well, let's try the import while we're in here. Reboot. Look at that. Reboot, the first principle of fixing something that's wrong. Here come our blocks, and here is hula hoop. So first I'll just give you a glimpse of the hula hoop code. It's kind of long and messy. And as I said, it would be very much easier if I had known what I know today. Or, yes, okay. So let's run it. And the idea is to keep adding hoops, as many hoops as you can without them stopping. Now, if they stop, you lose the game, and your score would be the most hoops that you had. But keep adding them, keep adding them. Look, when they go red, that means they're slowing down, they're trying to stop. Ooh, lots of them are stopping. Oh my goodness. Oops, 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 oops. Stopping. Hey, I'm doing pretty good here. Now I have to go 4 levels to actually win. And when the hearts increase with each level. And see, I lost. Okay, that's the idea of the game. Now, let's go back to, let me just show you while I'm in here why this was difficult. Go down here to Advanced Images and look at this. See, there's a draw a line. That's nice. I use that a lot. Draw a rectangle. I also use that. That's wonderful. And the next thing right here should be draw a circle. But there was no circle. So my job was to make one. So we are going to make a circle. So I started off making a circle in blocks because I like to program in blocks. Now, why is programming in blocks easier? Well, programming in blocks is easier because you can see them more easily, you can visualize the program more easily, and I just like blocks. They're colorful, they're fun, and so on. So I made a program in blocks that would create circles. So here's what it doesn't do the same as hula hoop, but it's definitely fun. Now, when I started playing with circles in MakeCode Arcade, I was trying to think of a game to do with circles, and that's how I thought of hula hoop. But this, when you run this program, it makes you think of a slinky. Of course, this slinky is about to stop. Let's restart it. We'll add some more hoops. Add some more hoops. Add some more hoops. See how it looks like a slinky? Now, what kind of game could you make out of a slinky? Let's just stop it, though, and look at the code a bit. Now, what do you have to do to make a circle in blocks? Well, that's what you have to do. Let me get it big enough where we can read it. This is the code that makes the circle. Right there. And it's not that the code is long or it's hard, but some people wouldn't really know how to approach making a circle. You have to deal with degrees and radians and points, and it just gets to be a nuisance. So why waste your time with all of this when the only thing you needed was a circle? So I decided that I would develop my own circle. So let's get a new project. We will call, this is my circle. Now, how do I want to do this? Well, first I'm going to install an extension. And the extension I want is on GitHub. And again, I'm going to go to GitHub and I'm not logged in. I would be just like you are, so I have to find WeCode MakeCode. So I go to that screen and then type in WeCode MakeCode. I go to the repositories and I want the Circle Sprite extension. That's the name of my extension right now. So that is its URL. I'm going to copy it, go back to here, add an extension. Please, come on. I don't really know why it's doing this, but what I've learned is once it starts doing it, I need to start over. Now, when I've added that extension, there it is, the WeCode MakeCode extension. So there are now 2 more blocks, which I built, the blocks that we built. So one is set circle, and it creates a circle sprite of that radius and color whatever you pick. See, it's got a little drop down. Okay, that's cool. And it also has the ability to fill a circle with some color. Well, okay, I admit it doesn't do much. But let's actually build a little program. So I first want to make myself a function. I'm going to call the function, very cleverly, getCircle. Now I will write that function in a few minutes. So this is going to give me a sprite which is a circle, and I will write this code later. But what I want to do is use the code in getCircle. Then I also want to use the controller buttons to add more circles. So we need to go up here to controller, and when we use the up button, that means to add a circle when it's pressed, and also when it's repeated, which means I can just spray circles all over the screen. And we're just going to call the exact same routine. See how easy that was? Now, if I only had some getCircle code, and we will do that by using our wonderful new block here. And what I want to do is I want to have it be a random radius. So I would go to math, pick random, and let's have it be 20 to 50. Now I think if I go here, you can actually see what the limits are on it. But since I want it to be random, I'm going to do it that way. And I will also want the color to be random. So I could pick it off of this drop down, but since I want it to be random, doing things randomly means the game doesn't repeat very often. So I'm just going to use 1 to 12 here. And I'm not going to explain color numbers right now because, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure I totally understand them. But that gives us colors for sure. Now, what else do I want to do? Well, I have a circle now. Let's run this program and see if there are circles. There's a circle. Yay! Let's see if I can do another one. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. Okay, we're making circles, but like I want them to do something. Okay, let's make them do something. Well, let's give them some velocity. Now this circle is a sprite. So you can do everything with it you can do with a sprite. So we're going to set its velocity. And we're going to set it to a random number, which makes it, again, far more interesting. So random. And we're going to go minus 100 to plus 100. And we're going to do the same for the y direction. Now let's see what happens. Well, we're getting circles, but like they're going away. Like all my circles are disappearing. You know how to fix that, don't you? We are going to simply cause our circle to bounce off the wall. I have days like that. Don't you have days like that? So my circle, we want it to bounce on the wall. Turn that on. And I want to call my circles circles. So I'm going to set its kind to circle. And I just add one to call a circle. Of course, you could call it anything you want. But now, all of my, all of my circles are called my circles. Now let's see what it does. See there? Bounces off the wall. And it just, boy, okay, I like it, but it's making me dizzy. And like, not doing anything particularly. So, wouldn't it be fun to have these things do something? So, there are two blocks that I like to use to cause them to do something. Of course, there are other blocks you could use. But I'm going to use an on-game update. And I'm not going to use the one that is empty there. I'm going to use this one. And I'm also going to use, what happens when the two circles hit each other. Okay, now we're cooking with something interesting. So if I have a sprite of kind circle that hits another sprite of kind circle, I'm going to want something to happen. And I don't have a clue what I'm going to do in here. I'm going to kind of work that out as we go. This is how you make a game. Okay, so there are lots of things you could do here. I've tried if one circle's velocity is greater than another one, I would have one of them destroyed. Well, that game didn't last very long. One that I found kind of interesting, and there's so many others you could try, is to, first we need a good old if statement. And I'm going to do a little test here. And the values I'm going to use are okay, so we have to drag these. You probably knew that. I have to get rid of these as I go. So if my sprite, not its X, because that's its position on the screen, or you could do that, I don't know, try it and see. I'm going to use its width, and I'm going to test it against the other sprite's width, and I'm going to have one of them follow the other one, which is a pretty fun thing to do. Okay, I have trouble finding follow. Okay, follow. There. And I want this sprite to follow that one. Well, so what this is saying is, whoops, not equal. I want them to be, I want a greater than right there. No, I'll use a less than. Okay. If this sprite is smaller than this sprite, then I want that sprite to follow the little sprite. And we could try it the other way. In fact, I think we will try it the other way. But right now, we're going to do it this way. Oops, can't do it that flat. Hey. There. Now what's going to happen? Do something and you try it. You do something and you try it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments, but the bad news is I actually can't read them because I've been using a magnifying glass. I'm having trouble reading them. But you people who are making the comments, I really like them. And what I will do is, if you have questions, towards the end of the session, I'll try to read them and then answer your questions then. Rather than strain, I am grandma. I am 77, soon to be 78 years old. It's understandable that I have a little trouble reading the screen. Okay, let's put some nether sprites up there. Completely conked out on me. You know, I have a very, very powerful computer. I won't bore you with it, but it's an Alienware Area 61 maxed out. So you know what that means. So let's go back to see where my circle is. We still got all of our code. I won't add so many at a time. Okay, now watch what they're doing. See, now they're following each other. The big ones are following the little one. Look at that. The big ones are following the little ones. Now, how would it look different? Yeah, I actually could read that. Yeah, it's way cool. I've wanted one a long time, and it is as cool as you think it's going to be. In fact, some days I think I want another one. Okay, now we want to stop this, and let's just see what happens if we have the big one, if we have the little one follow the big one. So what we do is we put this here and this here. Cool. Okay, now we just run it again, and that we have now done an experiment. The little one is following the big one. Now you're beginning to see why I made up a game called Hula Hoop, because this definitely reminds me of trying to keep a hula hoop or two in motion. But now, how would you have the game end? Well, let's go back over here and think about something. I'm going to put this back because I kind of like the other effect, but you definitely should experiment with this one. Okay, now we want a game end, so we need to watch for some condition. And I want this to check a little more off. Well, let's leave it at that for now. So I want to count the sprite, count the number of circles that are doing something. So MakeCode has this incredibly powerful statement that is sometimes overlooked. It took me a while to learn what this statement actually did. Okay, what we want to do is advance, and we want to go to arrays. And we want to set a list. That's not the one I want. I want the one on sprites. There, I want a sprite list. And I want to be array of kind circle. Now, you might think that well, okay. You might think I'd have to add sprites to that, but circles to this array. But as it turns out, this statement collects up all the circles in existence at that time and puts them in the array. It's quite remarkable how much work that does for you. So I want to see an easy way to see how many circles there are in existence at any given time. So I'm just going to set the score to the length of an array. And the array I want, of course, is my sprite list. I could call it my circle list, but let's be lazy. Now let's just run the game again. Now this is, think about this. This is half of a second, so that's pretty regular. See, there's 1. Let's add another one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You get the idea? Every time this runs, it makes an array, replacing the old one called sprite list, of all the circles in existence at that time. Cool. See? Lots of them. Took it a while to catch up. Boy, we definitely have a slinky going here. Okay, stop it. What else could we do? Well, what else could we do? Somehow we have to have a way of making the slinkies decrease. I'm sorry, making the circles decrease. So I am going to do this. I'm going to make myself a loop, and this is a very cool loop right here. For every element value in sprite list, so for every circle in sprite list, it's going to do whatever I put in here. I'm going to make myself an if statement, and if something, but I know in advance that I'm going to need an and, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And something about my sprite I'm going to test against something else, so I'm going to need something like that. And what if my sprite velocity, is 0? That means it's stopped. So if value, and now we have to put value here, because that's a circle. And if it's equal, not x, we want its velocity, vx. Got it? Okay. If vx is 0, and if vy is 0, that means that sucker is dead stopped. And so what I want to do is destroy it. I want to wipe out any sprite that has stopped. Now let's see what happens. They're disappearing. See, they're stopping. Now, I will tell you that they may be momentarily stopping, but then in order to change direction slightly. So I'm not sure it's fair to have them be wiped out in only one cycle like this. And in my game, Hula Hoop, I actually measured them for 2 cycles, and if they stayed stopped, then I would do something with them. Okay, so now we have a way to end the game. It's when all of them disappear. And how do we know if all of them disappear? Well, how about when score is 0? Did you notice how when score, as they were decreasing, score changed? Let's just try that again. Score is going up, up, up. Now it's decreasing. decreasing. Okay, decreasing, and I don't think that one's ever gonna stop. Although, okay, let's go back over here and let's test to see if score equals 0. Score equals 0. Then the game is over. Now, I think that maybe if the score equals 1, it should be over. But let's just try that. So we will go to the game and we will do a game over. And you lose, and I always like to have some confetti or something. Now let's see what happens. You know, even though they start disappearing, I'm pretty sure, you notice how sometimes it reaches an equilibrium, that is, it just repeats and repeats and repeats, and therefore it never stops. The hoops never disappear. And that's the idea that I based the hula hoop game on, that your goal was to add hoops until you had an equilibrium, and then not add any more hoops to mess it up. Now in this game, I'm pretty sure the way we have it defined now, that if you get down to 1 hoop, you know, nothing's going to kill it off because it's not going to stop because it has momentum. Okay, so obviously this has more work to do to make it into a game. And I'm going to leave that with you. And I'm going to put it on I'm going to actually rename it. So, Mixer Circles. Mixer Circles, almost a game. So you have to finish it. So let's upload it. There it is. And then this is, you finish it. Now, if you go to my Mixer channel, it will be public. You will be able to download it and you will be able to work on it. So let me know if you do something with it, because that would be fun. Now, what you're probably wondering is, how did I make this gadget? Because that gadget is incredibly cool. I mean, that is what made this so simple. And we're just going to make one right now. We're going to make a circle extension. And because I cannot type very well, we're going to, I'm just going to import this, from GitHub and show you the code. And it's called my Circle Sprite extension. Now, there it is, my Circle Sprite extension. Now, obviously, it's not built in blocks, so that's potentially the first problem. A little JavaScript is not very hard to learn, so I encourage you to learn a little JavaScript. And so there's 2 languages you have to know something about here. You have to know a little about the JavaScript, which are these types of things. And that's pretty easy to learn because you can write blocks and then you click over to JavaScript and see what the JavaScript equivalent is. And actually it's TypeScript, but that's a whole nother subject. Okay. This language here was new to me when I started doing this. So this is the block description language. And the blocks means the blocks that are over here in the MakeCode blocks, like, math and so on. So you have to learn how to make these blocks. And this language does that. Now, it turns out there's a wonderful way to learn about that, and I'm going to show you as soon as I explain a little bit more about this. So I have one function here that's create a circle sprite. That's that top block on the WeCode MakeCode, and that returns you that circle sprite. And remember, it had a radius and a color that you had to give it. Now these lines, they describe what that block should look like. This one is what the words say in the block. This one tells what the variable name is that appears in the block, which will be the variable name that's created when the block is executed. And then I have a radius, and I can set the minimum and the maximum, which is really nice. And then on color, there's a way to use that color number picker. Remember, it drops down and you can just click on a color. So that's how this block, one block, was created. The other block I made was the fill the circle block. And I'm not going to demo that to you, I guess, because I didn't. And that's kind of fun, but the trouble with having your circles filled is you can't see the circles underneath. But I think you could come up with some good games that would involve fill circles. And this one is defined much the same. Now notice these functions say export. This function doesn't. So that means this function is just used inside this namespace. And I call this namespace WeCode MakeCode because that wouldn't be the name you'd want to go on the block if you ever published it, but right now it keeps it, I know it keeps it separate from everybody else's blocks. Okay, that is an extension. If I modify it, I click here, go to GitHub, and then you saw how I imported it, and it will import the latest one. So in learning about extensions, the first most important way in learning about any kind of code, read the code, read the code. So let's make a new project here, and I call this one X because if I'm going to delete something later because it's just temporary, I always call it X. And let's go down to where extensions live. Now these are the ones I've been working with, but all of these extensions are available in MakeCode for Arcade, and some of them are like amazingly cool. And two of them I particularly used as models. So one of them, called Sprite Data Extension, I kicked myself for not knowing about this when I wrote Hula Hoop because it would have incredibly simplified what I did. Now, I have that extension installed, and if I look under sprites, there's a whole bunch of new things. There they are. See these things right here under a category data, which doesn't exist when you first open MakeCode. But what this lets you do is associate with any sprite. Actually, I'm not sure if it works with other types of things too. Maybe that'd be even cooler. I don't have time to experiment right now. But it lets you associate with a sprite or maybe something else. Well, I guess it's not. It's always a sprite because it's under sprites. Okay, it lets you associate any kind of data. And what's cool is you always give the data piece a name, which means it's like a dictionary. In other words, you can make up your own names for data, put it here, and then put a value. And you can have any number of these data things. And so with a sprite, I could have 10 different pieces of data that I use to manipulate that sprite. For example, when I made one pass of all the sprites, I could put in its velocity, and I could call that when I put in another velocity, I could call that the new velocity or something like that. Then I could measure the difference between the two. Or I could use their coordinates and measure the difference. So that's the type of thing I had to do in Hula Hoop, and I did it the hard way. But when you do things the hard way, sometimes you learn a lot. Okay. Now, if you want to read the code on this, it is so Easy. Look at this. I go to JavaScript. You have to be in JavaScript. You look under this thing, and there's Explorer. Now, Explorer shows you all the code you're currently using. Now, there's my Sprite Data one. And if you find main TS, or sometimes it's called something else, there is the code. There is the code for Sprite Data. Look at that. So I can read whoever's code this was, who's probably much more experienced in writing blocks than I am, and learn how they did it. That is the way to learn code. And in order to learn to write, I actually this past couple of weeks have read every extension that's available. So I'm going to go back here. If you want to go back to your main program, the only way I have found to do it is to go back there and then switch it to blocks. Okay. Or I think there was a blocks button that I didn't do. Now, I want to add another extension. There's another one I like really well as a prototype for me to learn from, Darts. And Darts is fun to use too. So now I'm going to go look here at Darts. Oh, got to go to JavaScript. Go to Explorer. And where is Darts? There's Darts. And there is Darts. See, this one's not called main. It's called Darts TS. Okay. And there is the code for Darts. And this one's kind of cool because, well, it's just cool. Oh, because it has a class, it defines a class, and it uses properties and methods of the class to export as blocks. So this is very different from the data one. And I'm kind of babbling on, and I won't go into all of that. Okay, I'm going to go back to home, and I'm just going to, whoops, I am going to delete all this. And so now, how else do you learn about blocks? Well, it turns out there are some wonderful ways to learn about blocks. One of them is go to MakeCode. I just put in MakeCode defining blocks. And there it is. This is a document under the MakeCode documentation, right under creating targets, which are the machines that MakeCode runs on. And how do you define blocks? Well, I read this the first time, and I thought, oh God, I'm never going to understand this. And I just kept on reading, and it just seems to get worse and worse. And I said, oh my gosh, I need some good examples. And now I will tell you that I went back to read it later on, and I understood nearly everything in it. And I felt very smug. The other thing, so that's one thing. But soon after you start reading this, what you really need to do is go to the playground. MakeCode playground. There it is, the MakeCode program. So the purpose of MakeCode program is to let you write and test your blocks. So, and then there's a whole bunch of examples here. So you can do this, and it will show you the blocks it creates, and it will show you the code markup that actually created it. So I really use this most of all to really learn about how to write my blocks, because I was able to find an example in here of everything I wanted to do. Like color is the place I learned about the color number picker. There's also a color wheel picker, which I didn't show you, but this is how you learn to make blocks. And after I've been using this thing a lot, I was very inspired, and then I actually went through every one of these and read the code. Then I went back to this and started reading it, and lo and behold, I understood a lot of it. I won't say all of it because you never do that, but I was pretty out there with it. Okay, That was really fun. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do my best to read some of these comments and see if I have any questions. So, I'm sorry, I'm chuckling. But Janie Laney, I encourage you to learn more. I am absolutely sure you can do it. And Jack in the Box, hey, there she is. Thanks. And I think there's one thing for sure I need to do. I need to just I need to paste in my mixer. My my MakeCode GitHub. And so you can go to that and see what I'm doing all the time. There it is. And so, or you can search for it like I told you to. So you guys have been great. It's fun that you were so interactive. And I'm glad you talked with me, and I hope you talked and shared some with each other. So go home and make an extension. I'm working on several more. Thanks, Grandma. Well, wait a minute. I want to wave at you. There I am. Grandma out. Yay. Make an extension. Goodbye. And my pug slept through this whole thing, and they've both been snoring. And if you heard the snoring, it was one of my pugs, Odie and Bean.